Welcome back to another week of Every Day We're Covering. Chris Parks, S.J. Munoz with you once again to talk the wide world of sports and wagering and have a few beverages with you along the way here as well. S.J., we're recording here on Mother's Day, so first off, thank you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We wouldn't be here without them for sure.
Yeah, that's. I think that's a scientific fact. We don't have to worry about anybody debating us on that one. So we'll go ahead and take that to the bank. Yeah, I guess good thing to celebrate. There's a lot of those whatever you want to call them Hallmark holidays, but this is probably one of the better ones, I suppose, of all of those.
That's true. Yeah, it is good. It is good to honor Mom. Mom does a lot. Mom gets a lot thrown at her and thrown on her plate, and we sometimes don't appreciate that. So it's always good to take a step back and celebrate her for a day. She's definitely got it the toughest out of anybody in the household, I would think. So we're raising a glass to Mom, and of course we're always raising a glass anyways when we're doing the podcast. So there's nothing new there.
Reason, yeah, ready to go.
But I've got one here. I'm going to save mine here for a minute because it's going to be a lead into our first story we start talking about here. But what do you got pouring over there?
Yeah. I mean, last week we were talking about how, just getting that garage fridge or the basement fridge stocked is just the old reliable. That's what I'm sipping on it. I got my Flight Yingling Flight. That's pretty much my go-to for the summer. It's getting a little bit warmer, after a nice lawn mow, get you one of them crisp beers out of the basement or garage fridge. You can't really beat it. Even I'm a shower beer guy, so I love that lawn mowing / shower beer combo. You can't really beat it on a 85-degree sunny day. That's like magic right there. So that's kind of the mood I'm in now. So I'm going simple, but I'm not mad at that. It's a good kind of simple.
Yeah, that's a good beer. And yeah, exactly. That's the time of year that is just so enjoyable. You can get a lather worked up and enjoy a nice cool down beverage. Doesn't get much better than that. We finally had some really warm weather here over the weekend too, so I think folks are starting to feel that way a little bit, getting in that summertime mood. Now the beer I'm drinking does fit the summer mold a little bit here because it's a style that could play pretty well if you're depending on what kind of stuff you like. But the story we're going to talk about here is a pretty interesting one because it's not every day you see these types of things happen. But there was supposed to be a new Arena Football League team that was going to play in Council Bluffs at the Mid-America Center called the Iowa Rampage. And unfortunately, they only got one game under their belt before they got the rug pulled out from underneath them, so to speak. The turf pulled out from underneath them. They had the turf laid at the Mid-America Center ready to go for their first game. And unfortunately, they're never going to play on it because the team had to up and fold due to a multitude of reasons. But it sounds like it's a lot to do with the leadership of this new Arena Football League that has been spawned here this past year. So I actually am drinking a beer that was made for the team that it's not going to play. And it's unfortunate that we're not doing the camera thing yet because the marketing is awesome on this thing. Like the graphics are just incredible. Of course, the logo they came up with for the team was just great anyways, and that's what they're using. But it's right on the can. Of course, they're going with the gorilla as the rampage, kind of, so to speak. And it's just this, angry gorilla with shoulder pads carrying a football, and it looks great. But they made a beer over there at the fine folks that are right next door to them, Full-Fledged Brewing Company. They actually have their location right next to the Mid-America Center, so it would have been a great deal for them to have games being played over there. But they made one called Ape Wit that was supposed to be, for the team. Perfect marketing. I mean, everything lined up great. But yeah, it's a Belgian-style wheat beer with that, that little bit of that, wit beer bite to it. But it's still, that smooth, kind of fruity. It can fit the summertime mold for sure. But yeah, unfortunate that this stuff isn't going to get its proper due here.
Well, I mean, not to make light of the team's issues, but you're either going to be able to get that at a discounted cost, or on the other hand, I guess you might want to maybe get you some while the getting's good there. They might jack them up, become a collector's item, RIP, what never was, what could have been, type of thing. Oh, when you said wit, that's music to my ears too. I love a good wit, so maybe I have to try to see if I can get my hands on one of those as well. But the whole thing is, I guess it's not obviously not unheard of, considering the smaller leagues, the semi-pro, if you want to call them that, or just the smaller professional leagues. Teams kind of come and go. It's hard to kind of keep that afloat, and it's a business. You're trying to make money on top of that, so it's tricky. It sounds like they maybe had at least a couple of good ideas as far as the beer goes, and the logo and that sort of thing. But I guess that it takes more than that, obviously, to make a team go. And I mean, you figure you're gonna have you don't want to, but you're probably going to have a loss for a few years just starting any type of franchise, even if it's a small one, or obviously all the way up to the major pro level. So kind of curious as to what kind of unfolded there. Just we're getting the Cliff's notes, and I'm sure later on, maybe down the road, someone's going to kind of tell their story and maybe get some more details to it. But it is a little bit it just like the suddenness of it, I guess, is kind of unfortunate. For obviously you start with the team and the players, but maybe the fans that bought tickets, or some of the people that were kind of banking on that added entertainment opportunity for neighboring businesses, or with a little bit of an entertainment district there. I know they've got some casinos around there as well. Just
Yeah.
some kind of another thing to do on the weekend is kind of just went up in flames here.
Yeah, yeah, it is unfortunate. Like you said, it has happened in the past. These teams have come and gone. We've seen many teams that have played at that arena itself that have had not been able to survive, and usually it's a league wide type thing. Where the league forms, it ends up just not being able to produce enough revenue, and they have to go away. Well, this is a deal more so where there were a lot of promises made. It sounds like to these owners, and then there wasn't delivery from the league itself. So the league was formed once again by this gentleman named Lee Hutton, who is the AFL commissioner. And from what you were reading, it sounds like he was also an owner of one of the Minnesota teams as part of this as well. But the leadership originally, they had kind of absorbed another indoor football team. The AFL's been around multiple times before. This is not the first iteration of this league, but it did fold in the past. And then there was, for a while, the two different tiers where they had like an AFL 2 and then AFL, and then it went back to the AFL, and then they disappeared for a while, and now, yeah, they're trying to do it again.
When people complain about the European League, what do they call it? Where they relegation and all that. Like,
Yeah.
that's, we're about on that level with this. Obviously, it's not the most popular football league, but at the same time, it's like kind of looking into this, we're just a little bit. I think both of us a little bit surprised of like kind of the windy road that this league has had, and the different bursts and rebirths and deaths, and even a connection to the NFL Network doesn't seem enough to salvage some of these teams' livelihood, and the operations can't keep going.
Yeah. So basically, the team just said, hey, there were promises made and we didn't get them, and that's why we can't continue, because we don't have money. So the actual statement from the league, or from the team, said that Lee Hutton and his team have destroyed not only the revival of the AFL, but they've destroyed the hopes of all the players over the U.S., coaches who have dedicated time and energy through training camp, yada, yada, yada. As owners, we do not take this decision lightly. We wish that we wouldn't have come, but without the promised support of the league, we have no other option than to discontinue operations immediately. They did make a note that all ticket holders will be reimbursed, because that was unknown at first, but it does sound like people will get their money back. And then the team's going to liquidate all their assets that they have in order to try to cover some of their other payments and what they still own. So that was the unfortunate part of it. Now, the original agreement, somebody I noticed, or I found on Twitter here, they had found kind of like the memo about the merger with this CIF, is what it was merged with the AFL, and what they were promised. So the league was supposed to provide uniforms with the logo mark. They were supposed to provide footballs as well, and then the salaries also were going to be split. So the teams would pay a certain portion, and then the league would pay a larger portion of the individual player's salaries. So obviously that's a huge sticking point. If you can't pay the people to put on the product, then you're not going to have a product. So that's a big hurdle there. And then also they were supposed to help with merchandising, and then there was supposed to be some sports betting involved, and then streaming, as we mentioned as well, of the games. That never happened. Also, that was promised there were going to be games on NFL Network, but it never came to fruition. So there was something that didn't go right there either. So yeah, it just sounds like league wide. I did see also that there have been a number of other teams that have followed suit already. This last week, the Philadelphia Soul and then the Georgia Force also have stopped their operations for this league. So it sounds like it's pretty much going to be the whole league's going to collapse is what's going to happen here. But yeah, really unfortunate. The team was pretty, they were hyped up. They had, started to do their media blitz. They had their first road game. They won it. So that generated a little bit of local, interest. Everybody always likes winning no matter what it is. And then, yeah, they were on their way back, and that's when they got the news that, yeah, well, we're not going to have a team anymore. I'm sure some of them already maybe had known the writing was on the wall because they hadn't seen a paycheck show up. Boy, that's just, there's so many, like you said, so many parties involved that get disappointed by something like this, and it's got to be just a huge mess to try to, get through.
Yeah, it's kind of sounded like, maybe it was at first a business, relationship maybe like soured, but then when you start thinking of the other teams, it just doesn't look good for the league, and I wouldn't be surprised in a week or so, or maybe a couple weeks at the most, that like some kind of announcement of the league just folding, I guess, with lack of a better term, is probably going to be coming. It's got to be just a wild lifestyle. You kind of just a lot of those guys, either they're kind of maybe a couple 3 years left, I might as well play a little bit more. I'm not what I used to be, but maybe here and then you got the young guys kind of hanging on to a dream and hoping maybe catch on somewhere just to keep playing. That lifestyle's got to be just really crazy, and you don't get a lot of times you don't get paid all the time, and it doesn't mean the league's going to be disbanded, but that check isn't always on time with some of these, and you got to kind of have some faith there, and it's not the right thing to do and not the way to go about your life. But like I said, if you're kind of hanging on to that dream, or just you don't really know anything else, or maybe if I can't do anything else, you're just kind of hanging around and doing what you can do to stay in that world. But man, I don't know. That's got to be a tough life to live for even just the people that maybe you're more financially secure, but trying to make investments or branch out and be the owners, or be the president, or commissioner, that type of thing. Just I don't know. We like to gamble, obviously, but I don't know if I want to gamble that big.
Yeah.
I might be a little bit more than I'm willing to risk there.
Yeah. So it's funny. I had gone into the brewery. I had stopped by because there was another beer that I had saw that they had released that I wanted to try, and I thought they were going to have it there available on site in cans. But when I went in and asked about it, the guy's like, "Oh yeah, no, that was just a small batch. We didn't end up doing cans. It was just a tap thing." So I was like, "Oh, that's that sucks." And then there was another gentleman that was there, and he started asking immediately, about what's the deal with this team, and so we kind of got into a conversation about it, and he's like, "Yeah, we had it up on the board, all written, ready to go. Welcome Iowa Rampage. The cans are ready. We got them sitting here." He's like, the distributor had already picked a bunch of it up and had sent it out to stores, and we're getting ready to put it on shelves. And I think they had in a couple of locations, because if I'm not mistaken, I did see it a week before that. But of course they're probably going to pull it. He said that they likely wouldn't put the rest of it up there, so they really didn't know what they were going to do with the rest of it. He said it was going to cost too much to just go ahead and rebrand it, so it really wasn't worth it to do that. He said, well, maybe a funny idea would be take our employees' logos and put their face over the gorilla and just have some fun with it or something. But yeah, so the two interesting things that I picked up though out of that conversation, the first was he said that somebody from the mayor's office had come in that morning, and he was talking about how disappointed he was and the fact that he was mad because he had bought season tickets. And he's like, I don't know if I'm going to get my money back for these things. This kind of sucks. So when he was there though, he went ahead and bought like 24 of these 4-packs of this Iowa Rampage beer. He's like, I'm going to figure out a way to, make it worth my money one way or another. He's like, I'm going to get these out to people, or, he was just trying to do a nice thing, I think, for the brewery. So that was cool. And then the other thing the guy sitting there said is he knew a business owner in the area that had just opened up within the last year, and they had been visited by members of the marketing team and the team a year before as they were building up to this, because they hadn't been making preparations for a while, knowing that this team was going to be formed. So it wasn't like it was just, we made it yesterday and then it closed the next day. There were some people involved in the background. Obviously, it was still probably pretty early on and they didn't know a whole lot, but just thought that was interesting that there was some connections going on out there, and it's a long drawn out process, and I guess you find people that try to make the best of the situation, and fortunately for the brewery, I think the beer's good enough that they might make out okay on it anyways. And I was like, before I left, I'm like, all right, I'm buying a 4-pack because this is just too good of a story and too good of a little memorabilia piece to hang on to if I hang on to one of these cans just because it's funny. But pretty interesting story from top to bottom, that's for sure.
Yeah, you don't. I guess you don't come across that connection. You might read about it or whatever, but the fact that you're right there, kind of in the middle of that discussion there, makes it all that more interesting. But yeah, it's kind of just sucks for everybody involved. And no one probably. A lot of times you read those messages and they say, "Oh, we didn't want to do this, don't do this," but I think it's probably more of a genuine didn't want this to happen across not just one of those PR stunts. Of course, I'm not saying I don't know any of these executives, want to call them that, or they could be be total crooks. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I don't think that just give them the benefit of the doubt and think that kind of a start team. Obviously, you don't want it to fail right away, so I don't think there's any way that this was intentional or probably was trying to be avoided at all costs, and just it wasn't avoidable.
Yeah. So unfortunate ending to the story for sure. There originally kind of were some rumors that were flying around that they may find a way to get some other funding somewhere, keep it going, and it just doesn't sound like that's going to happen. I mean, there's a lot more to it, I think, than just finding a couple of bucks for these people to make it happen. So unfortunate scenario there, but we'll keep our eye on the full league, I guess, and see what becomes of it here if it does get a full collapse here down the road, and then maybe if there is anything eventually that does come of this later on. Who knows? Maybe the team has got some hopes later, future to join a different league. Where we were talking before, there is another team that's been around forever in the Des Moines area, the Iowa Barnstormers, and they've managed to always pretty much have a team. And they're a member of a different league right now, which is the Indoor Football League, which I guess is separate. And they had joined that back in 2016. It looked like it said that they had made a change to that league. So I guess good news for them. They're not involved. But and there's other teams. We've got the Omaha Beef that still play. In Omaha. There's been past teams. We even had a semi-regular football team there with the Nighthawks in Omaha that lasted a hot minute. So this isn't the first and won't be the last story of its kind. But always interesting to follow these stories when they come about.
I mean, it's obviously a different level, but I mean, I've always enjoyed the minor leagues, if you will, of pro sports. I mean, I know, and I remember the Tri-City Diesel was always a fun time. That was I don't know what league involved with there in Kearney when we were in college, or even the Nebraska Cranes had a little run there on the hardwood there,
Mm-hmm.
and then here locally, like we'll still check out a match game, which is I think it's AHL.
Okay.
It's a one the hockey. I believe they could have changed too, because like we were talking. I mean, you don't even know that these leagues rename themselves or disband or join with other teams. It's almost like conference realignment.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of happens so quick. But I mean that's a fun time as well. And a semi-pro indoor soccer team here, the Kansas City Comets, that we're just familiar with as well, because one of the player coaches our daughter's done some training with on the side there. He's got like a soccer training program or whatever. So I mean, but it's just kind of go through that just to say that I enjoy it. I understand it's not the highest of the high, but just I don't know any competitive event I'm all about, and you can have some fun with it and just take it for what it is. Even in the minor league baseball, that's a good time as well.
Yeah, and good family events. Something different to do. Another option.
You don't
out
have to
there
pay
for
$1,000 for to get there. You can have a little bit of I won't say cheap, but a little bit more reasonable fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because we know that that's unattainable sometimes in some of the major professional sports leagues for sure. So we'll continue to follow these stories and see if anything becomes of this a little bit further down the road. We're going to stay in the football front here for our next topic. This is a story that you had caught your eye and you sent over to me, and it definitely is one we haven't, not heard something of similar nature from another coach here before, but another one that's being very public about it, and that is over at Boise State. It sounds like, they're being pretty forthright that tampering he thinks is an issue.
Yeah, I guess just kind of came out and said basically, other teams, and I believe it was fellow conference teams, just kind of coming for his players. The head coach at Boise State. So, and we talked about before at Nebraska, the head coach of Nebraska making comments about players literally showing him screenshots of other teams' coaches, I don't know, making them an offer, telling them to come visit, whatever it might be. But I guess got a little bit of a trend building here, and even the Boise State interview was a local TV station kind of had the scoop on it. It was I believe like maybe after the spring game, it was just kind of like the post spring press conference there, and they kind of put the video out there, and what Wyoming, I believe it was the I'm not gonna a Wyoming coach on the staff there. I'm not gonna say which one because I couldn't go back and find it. So that tweet may have been deleted, but he did. He kind of co-signed on it with a quote tweet with you know a handful, we'll say, or maybe even we could go a plethora of snake emojis. Kind of saying that there's a bunch of snakes out here in the game. So he kind of had the same sentiment there as people coming after him. And was one thing for I mean, I guess I'm kind of a little different feeling with being a Nebraska fan, and it's at the same time it's more of a major team, so I think that's a little bit more understandable. Or at least one of the bigger conferences. You can say what you will about the success they've had, but as far as the being in one of the, I guess, Power 2 conferences, you want to call it, Power 3. I guess I throw the Big 12 in there as well. But either way, you would think with the talent level that's probably on the roster, people are going to come for your players. That's kind of a given. The maybe being that brazen about it, it was probably a little bit what caught that story of just willing to just text any players and not worry about who saw who was seeing it. That was more of the surprise with that one. But with teams like Boise and Wyoming, it's like they don't have a lot to replace if you're losing 2 or 3 or 4 starters off the roster. The depth isn't quite what the bigger schools might have. So I can imagine that this is probably one of their probably to the higher the list of concerns for them to be keeping players. And I even know there was some comments of I think it was Boise as well that was saying that freshmen aren't allowed to do NIL or get payment. I think some clarification came out from that of what actually is allowed and what isn't allowed, but that's definitely not doing yourself any favors on top of that. So I'd probably keep quiet about the NIL stuff, even if that is the case. Just maybe keep that news in house. But I know that's hard to do these days. But it's I guarantee I guess I don't know. I don't even know what to call them, mid-major, whatever. Whatever we want to call them, we can make up our own name and just go with it. But I guarantee that's probably their top concern is just holding on to their talent, because without the consequences of transferring, do whatever you want, like it's got to be really hard to keep some of that talent on your roster.
Yeah, and that's a huge concern, I'm sure, for those schools. And and it really is another thing that is a bad wrinkle as far as from a fan's perspective, because you love sometimes when some of those schools catch lightning in a bottle and find this guy that nobody wanted, and he ends up being a star and makes the team really good, and they end up competing and knocking off a couple of big dogs. So that's fun for us too. But yeah, in this day and age, we pretty much realize now if that kid's an underclassman, he's probably going to get picked up and scooped out somewhere else, and it's up to them obviously if they make that decision to leave. But more often than not, they probably are going to make that call now, just the way it is. But just adding a little context to that, the reason this kind of came up too in that presser, they went the last week of the recruiting window without losing a starter, despite what he said was going on with the other teams trying to get in there. So they did their job to hang on to one apparently maybe they were concerned about. But he stopped short of naming the programs that reached out to his players, but he said that he personally called coaches to tell them to stop tampering with his roster. He said that at least 12 players had recently been contacted through means that violate the current NCAA policies. Obviously nothing new. Boosters have found ways to get around this stuff, and it's been happening in all kinds of different leagues. I saw a quote in the same story too from Brady Hoke at San Diego State that said programs in the Mountain West do a great job of developing football players. Recruiting has always been part of the job, but these days we have to do a great job of recruiting new guys and the guys already on our team. So, yeah, double duty now for you a little bit. You're trying to convince them to stick around, too, at the same time as finding the next guy to develop. So, it's not perfect, obviously. It's a mess. We kind of knew this was going to be a mess from the get-go when these rules just kind of were plopped down, and here we go. It was just like, here's the new thing in Wild West, and that's what we're getting. So not to be surprised that, other coaches, too, would take this, route, because who's been hurt by doing anything wrong from the NCAA before? There hasn't been much of a precedent set that you're going to get in trouble for it.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like we're not bringing it up to say, "Oh well," but at the same time, it's like if there's going to be not going to be any consequences, and I don't think the NCAA, not only are they not in a position to be handing out penalties at this point of kind of how they've pretty much flubbed every big initiative that there's been out there, but they just don't really care to do so. On top of that, I get my point with it, or my stance is just a lot of this that you get mad. Everyone gets mad at every transferring and not just going for the money and all that stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's the coaches that are the ones kind of greasing that wheel and kind of just all over them and offering them these ridiculous sums of money if that's what they're really doing. We don't really know how much people are getting paid. They could say this or that, but there's no real paper trail with that. Who knows what's happening? Obviously, people are getting paid. I'm not saying that's not true, but you hear a lot of these claims of, oh, he's getting 600,000 or this guy's getting $1 million. Like, are they really, or are they just saying that to kind of like kind of dramatize it there and make it sound like obviously there's something that's getting people to change their minds at the rate they're doing so. But I'm still like my fingers pointed at the coaches and the boosters or the collectives, whatever's doling out the money. That's where that's kind of my whole point from keeping bringing these up. It's not anytime you get to the bottom of these, like coaches being mad about something or kind of being like pissed off or just off put by actions, it's from other coaches. Mm-hmm. And supposedly we were always told it was such a fraternity, such a brotherhood amongst coaches. Maybe we're finding out that's not the case when it comes to games and kind of getting to that next level of being one of the elite coaches.
Yeah, push comes to shove. Maybe they don't care anymore about the next guy. And I think we've talked about it on this show before ourselves that until there's something like a legit contract system where they're signing contracts and then we know what those contracts consist of and it's an open book and everybody knows what's going on, then there's no way that you're ever gonna stop what's going on now. It's just going to continue to be kind of a weird free-for-all unless you make it some sort of a system that everybody's on the same page with. And then I think if you get to that point where you are doling out so quote-unquote contracts, then you have a better chance of getting teams then to agree to, here's the windows that we're going to set during the year where kids can make that decision, and then we'll say so much essentially there should be no contact during this time or whatever. Obviously I think that there's always going to be something under the scope. I mean, we see that in the NFL. We've talked about that before too. We know that happens. So it's never going to be perfect, but at least if you have that structure, it would be a little bit more, I think, cooperative from everyone.
Yeah, if it's your team doing the quote unquote cheating, it's just they want to win so bad. But if it's not your team, it's look at those damn cheaters. So it's always about the perspective. I mean, I just get tired of people blaming kids all the time for the actions of supposed adults. So that's, I mean, I understand they're legally adults as well. But, remember what you were like in college, the general you, and we'll see how adultish we all were. So I don't know. It's easy for us to forget that stuff. So
yeah, very, very true. That's a good perspective to try to hold in front of folks. Along that front, this is something we didn't talk about this prior to the program, but this happened the other day, and I thought, man, I don't know how I feel about this because it's my team, but so just this past week, Iowa State came out and said that they were putting a couple of different projects on hold. They had plans to build a new wrestling facility, and then they've had plans for a long time to do some upgrades to Hilton Coliseum, and kind of expanding concourse and doing a whole bunch of stuff. But they now have come out and said that some of those things we're on pause because we really don't know what's going on with this whole crazy college football playoff world. He said it isn't reasonable to go to the state and say we're going to put bonds out for these things when we're not certain on how revenue is going to stack up going down the road. It was interesting. I think part of the comments that he made, because he did, Jamie Pollard, the AD, came out and directly said, he made a comment, well, when the college football playoff is taking all the money and giving it to the SEC and Big Ten, then we don't know what's going to happen. And then that was kind of his little shot and jab, his angle on this thing. And I think that was partly just a ploy, to kind of, get a little shot in there and make it, put it to more light and get people more talking and thinking about it. But at the same time, to me, it was a little bit of a bad look, too, because it's not like those are the only things the university has going on. They just started a huge project between the Hilton Coliseum and Jack Trice Stadium with this Sci-Town thing where they're doing a little, development between, and going to have some different, tenants that are there along with the parking lots where the normal tailgating would happen. And then, so immediately some fans were like, well, maybe you shouldn't have blew your wad on this stupid Sci-Town thing, which I'm not, totally in disagreement with their perspective on it. And then the other thing that people have been bitching about for a long time there is that they don't sell alcohol at the games, which is like, here's an instant thing that could make you money, and you just continue to refuse to do it, which a lot of schools have kind of given in and done that by now. But I don't know. It's interesting. I just thought that him bringing that direct comment up was something that was going to obviously gain a little bit of fodder. But at the same time, I think you need to take a step back and look at the whole scenario as a whole, too, because we can't always just say that, this college football thing is the reason for every single decision that we make.
Yeah, and it's maybe kind of trying to take the heat off yourself as well, and saying, well, they're not, it's not a level playing field type thing, which that's understandable. Of course, you're going to try to do a little bit of PR spin at the same time, but it's it's kind of wild how there was the facilities race, and everyone keeps saying it's going to end, but then again at the same time you see these universities still kind of dumping millions upon millions of dollars into this. This probably could be a topic for another day. But when you brought up alcohol sales, it almost seems like a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's certain stadiums where it's just the infrastructure and just like getting it to the point where you could, be feasible to sell it. Of course, you can bring in a cart here or there, but when you got, 50, 60, 70,000 people in a venue, I don't know, driving in just, kind of 2 or 3 stands or what have you, it doesn't really work out that way. And you end up, running out of stuff, and then people are pissed off because they didn't get a bite, or they're waiting in line for, 30 minutes to an hour, and they miss whatever it may be, if it's a concert there, or just, and obviously just a game as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the route that if schools don't have it yet, they need to go with something like that. Even just the sports betting aspect where states where it's legal, you got to kind of offer something different these days, because we've said before, being, lifelong sports fans, of the pull to go to games in person isn't what it used to be. So you need to do something different. I think that's probably where they need to target. And I get where you want to kind of have and that might be was the concept behind that, entertainment district. But
yeah.
I don't know, like if it's only going to be used 7, 8, 9, 10 times a year, you're probably better off just trying to get some taps in your concessions and doing something more that way, where it's a little less, cost, and you can, make a quick profit at it, because you're making some serious money when it comes to alcohol sales. When you look at just the colleges that have it, but even pro sports or just venues in general, that's I know a lot. Just some of the venues I know locally, or just even that I've just talk to people, and like that basically keeps them afloat before anything else, just alcohol sales.
Yeah, how many concerts would there be in the world if there weren't alcohol sales? It probably would be dramatically less. That's just the facts of it. And you bring up a good point. I mean, it isn't like you just say, yeah, we're going to do it, and you do it. There is a lot that is behind it, and can be a lot of issues, and there's a lot of reasons why people don't like it once it is implemented, and I get that too. I mean, people are going to be idiots, and they're going to be worse than they were before in some cases, and that's a problem. I understand that. And even in Ames, one thing too that I've thought of is like I'm in favor of it, and make as much money as you can, in my opinion. But there have been a lot of issues otherwise just in the concession stands now, so I can't imagine adding that problem to the mix at the moment until they get everything else figured out. So yeah, it's a deal, but certainly something you would think most places are going to, and a lot of them just have. I mean, schools that you kind of were adamant that they never would have done it now at this point. So that world has changed a little bit. And At the end of the day, it's kind of just like anything else. Chase the dollar where it comes, and that's what they're going to end up doing, I think, to
Well, I
fill
mean,
the seats.
I get there's different, being if it's a school or whatever, there's a little different than just your everyday sports venue. But I mean, if you can drink 5 feet
Yeah,
from this
from the door.
sidewalk, why can't that's my whole point. It's like I get
Yeah.
where maybe you think people are gonna get rowdy, but you're literally letting them be rowdy just across the street, but they can't do it here. That's kind of where I think it's a little
Hmm.
bit. If you're going to be told campus that no one can drink anywhere, that's a different
Yeah.
story. But I don't think any of those exist,
Yeah.
at least not in practice. Maybe in theory, maybe on paper, but
Hmm.
as long as you're pouring something in a plastic cup, pretty good anywhere you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and in Ames, that people are doing just that because they leave at halftime, drink some more, and come back. So it's like you're not solving the idiots being idiot problem. That's kind of the deal. But I don't know. We'll keep an eye on how obviously that whole money financial situation is going to change. But I do think it'll be interesting to see if any other ads make comments along those lines, or if there's things that get put on hold because maybe revenues changed or they got pushed somewhere else. Obviously the conference thing has done a lot to a lot of schools too. If you got pushed out of somewhere you thought was great and now the money isn't as great anymore, you might have to make some different decisions. That's just the way it is. But it'll be an ongoing story, I'm sure. Another thing that we wanted to touch on here, and it won't take too long for us to go through, but we were kind of waiting to see if that second leg of the Triple Crown was going to be as interesting as everyone hoped, and fortunately, it sounds like it will be. Mystik Dan has decided that he will run in the Preakness Stakes, so get that elusive Triple Crown, still out there and dangling for one horse, and that's what we always like to see come Preakness time. Usually, there's a horse or two that's kind of been hyped up that didn't run in the Derby, that has been waiting to run in the Preakness, one that just didn't feel right for the Derby field, but their owners were comfortable with putting him into a smaller field in the Preakness. And I think there's a couple of those that lined up here for this race. But we were waiting for a long time. They waited kind of till the last minute to make the announcement that Mystik Dan was going to run. They're really concerned about the short turnaround because he didn't do well the last time that he had a scenario like that where he went on a short 2-week kind of rest and trip. So obviously that plays into how people maybe think he will do, but it's what we want. We want that horse in that race.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a shot at him. Why not? Like that's I probably typically I don't catch the second one unless the whoever won the Derby is gonna run it. So
Mm-hmm.
not now I'm be interested to watch, and I think I'm not alone in that thought process of the general consumer of it. Just it kind of takes a little bit of zaps a little bit of the energy out of it, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, if they don't, the Derby winner isn't able to run for whatever reason in the next leg. So yeah, that's good to see, and hopefully we have a good race here. And I don't know if you can beat that finish
Yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
the Derby though. That was
No.
an all time
Yeah.
classic. But here's the trying at least.
No kidding. Yeah, beating that is just going to be a real hard task to do. But yeah, it's fun. I did see a stat when he was considering maybe not running, because a lot of people thought that he was leaning that way, that he wasn't going to run. They said that would have been 5 out of the last 6 years that the Derby winner had not run in the second leg, so there wasn't that chance. And part of that, of course, was due to the pandemic. We had a year where they were called off, and then we've had some other, issues, obviously, with just, people being comfortable with all kinds of scenarios. But and then there's been a few in that time span that just decided not to. So yeah, it would have been awful, I think, for the sport had he not. Especially because of that finish. I mean, that finish got some more eyeballs and interest in it because it got people talking. Even if they didn't watch the race, they probably heard about it because everybody's like, "Oh, you see that great finish," and then not to have the horse continue on would have been just tragic for the sport in general, I think. But so that's good. We'll watch, and we'll be excited to see how he does here this next time around.
Yeah, and hoping there. Maybe that's just a little bit of gamesmanship there with that concern talk, and if anything, it'll maybe give you some good odds on there, maybe a little bit of plus money coming our way. So I'm gonna take a close eye at that and keep watching that during the week here.
Yeah, we'll get a look at that, and maybe we'll do another short vid for you on that too when we get closer here to Preakness. We're getting set off and going. The other thing, of course, that's been going on has been the playoffs in both the NBA and the NHL. We're into that second round phase here for both of the leagues, and we've seen some pretty good games here or there, some teams that are doing well. SJ, I know you've been kind of on this almost every day and night, at least kind of looking at something or having a little fun with peeking at something, whether it be a prop or an actual line. Anything that kind of stands out to you that's been fun or you've really had an interesting eye on?
Other the 3-point props have actually been pretty good to me. The when you look at the stars, you think about Anthony Edwards and Jokic or Doncic, and even in the East Conference, Tatum and the unders have been hitting pretty well as far as the point totals, or even if you want to do a combo. I like to do the points, rebounds, assists combo. Overall, those unders have been actually pretty consistent. So I'm kind of taking a look at that, but the lines is probably where I'm hitting on the best. Just the totals, the over unders are usually it's pretty consistent on the overs there. Even that Cleveland Boston series, you've had a couple of blowouts, but there's still the amount of points there at the same time. But yeah, it's been all right. I don't think anybody's like really, as far as the prop thing or anything. No one's really kind of been out of sorts so far. So that's staying pretty consistent with the game. But yeah, I'm gonna kind of dig in here. I was a little disappointed with a couple of the plays I made, as far as taking a chance on some guys that I don't normally do, and maybe be like a really low rebound total,
Mm-hmm.
a really low assist total, and kind of looking at that. So that's where I'm kind of maybe trying to dig a little deeper. So I guess keep an eye out for that. I'm not going to give up yet. I'm still trying to find a little happy median there. Obviously, don't get the value with just the straight up, just the money lines that I want to get. So trying to play with the props a little bit. So we'll continue to do that as the playoffs progress.
Yeah, I know that's the thing that I've been a little bit frustrated with is, I've had some, one good play here or there, but it's like when you actually get in the moment where you're in the, app, or if you're at the book and you see those lines, it's like, man, your return. Sometimes it's just so low. It's like, why would I even, is it even worth making this bet? Like, just doing the straight line. And sometimes, unfortunately, some of the more well-known props, like, if you're looking at a player total type of thing, a lot of times it doesn't add a whole lot of value to your line either there, which is kind of crazy. But I know I've messed around with kind of doing a few, and unfortunately, just the breaks of it, you usually, and that's how it goes. You hit 2 or 3 parts of it, and you don't hit the fourth, and that's what has happened to me almost all week long when I've done some different things with prop wise, and even the lines. I've tried to, maybe if I'm doing a couple NHL bets, then I'll put them together. Well, obviously that usually ends up going half and half, and then you're SOL. So I gave up for a couple days. I had to take a step back, and that's what you got to do
That's what a good
sometimes.
yeah, that's what a good gambler does there. You gotta regroup every now and again and kind of cut your losses, and maybe come at a different angle, or
Yeah,
just let your mind breathe there for a minute and think about it.
yeah, reassess, and and obviously as a sports fan, there's always those moments where you let kind of your heart get in the middle of it too. And it's not that that's the case in this situation, because neither of these sports, I don't have like necessarily a team that I've gotten involved right now. But you still kind of have sometimes your I don't know, things you lean on, or you have an image of a player in your mind, and you're like, oh yeah, he does that all the time. He's going to do that for me, and then you just kind of get overconfident without really assessing what that line maybe is. Thinking about looking at averages. Does he really hit threes or three threes every night? Like, let's go check that out. Maybe we should do some more research here. And I think that's maybe where that comes in. You just got to take a little deeper look and seeing averages and how things have been playing, previously to make it make sense. And even within the series sometimes, because maybe it's just the matchup in that series. Maybe they've got a great defender that closes out really well, and he's not going to hit as many threes that time around. So, I think it's sometimes just maybe taking a little bit deeper look at it too.
Well, and like the thing too is, like, if some I'm gonna this guy's maybe 40, 30 some percent, maybe even pushing 40 on threes for the season or even in the playoffs, and go 0 for 6. What are you gonna do? I mean, that's just like it
Yeah.
just happens some
Uh-huh.
days like that. So yeah, that's just the breaks, and we like try to make the best play with some value in mind, but at the same time, it's dealing with human beings. You don't know when's going to have a crap night. You don't know if someone's fighting with his wife or his ex or whatever, or been out partying all night, and not taking this game seriously. And it just seems like for the East Coast in the NBA, the Eastern Conference seems to happen more than the West. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen in the West, but I'm just thinking of that Boston Cleveland series specifically. But even now, Indiana after tonight, just like a team wins by 15, next game they get blown up by 20. Like, what do you mean? Like, how there's nothing, there's no consistency, there's nothing you can analyze there. It's just like, what the hell is, and so you're gonna assume Cleveland's gonna smoke them next, right? That's how it's been going, but eventually that trend's probably gonna end. So could be next game, could be the game after.
Yeah.
But you just that's kind of the trick of it all. So you just got to kind of keep that in mind. I'm not saying no one's gonna win on these bets or you can't pick anything, but you also got to kind of keep that as part of the equation of being like it's gambling for a reason. That's what they call it, gambling.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think too, we've seen this, with the last, I'd say, handful of years in the NBA, especially, that teams really kind of bounce way one way or another. It seems like within a week, they won a game by 30 one night. They got blown out by 25 2 nights later. It's like, what the hell's going on? It just doesn't make sense sometimes. And yeah, I mean, you're looking at that Pacers score from today, 121-89. It's like, holy crap. Hey, is that how the Knicks going to win a game in this series? Well, they already won 2.
That was my thought, because the value for today was at least, trying to pick a winner or against the spread was the Knicks money line, that you're getting plus money on that. And after last game, I thought they kind of got screwed out of that last game. I thought they should have won that. A couple of questionable calls, but at the same time, they maybe got the benefit of the doubt in New York. So you kind of get how that plays out. So Indiana's going to kind of hold them off and win a close game, which you probably, they're at home, they might do that again, or Knicks are going to blow them out and be going to be pissed off from those calls last game. And I mean, I know they're down a player, at least a starter. A couple other guys are still hurt, but at the same time, they in my mind could have, would have, should have won the last game. So with that plus money, that's kind of where the value was and why I thought maybe the Knicks could win. And then you look at it, it's the exact opposite. So that's the nature of the business, if you want to call it a business.
Yeah.
But that's just how it goes. But logically, thinking that the chances of that what happened today were less like anything. So if I go with the value of what seems more likely to me, I'm fine with playing out the way it did. That's just the way it goes, and you come back the next day and try to outsmart the book.
Yep. And well, I guess at the end of the day, if you're interested in series that may go a long ways, we kind of got a lot of those shaping up.
Yep.
It's Mavs up 2-1 on the Thunder, the Celtics are up 2-1 on the Cavs, and now we've got 2-2 in the Pacers Knicks, and it looks like we're going to have 2-2 Nuggets Timberwolves. The Nuggets with a decent lead here in the fourth quarter right now as we're recording. So it's definitely some interesting series to watch. I don't catch all these things. I try to watch some games here or there when I get a chance. I did sit down last night and watched quite a bit, and I don't know why, because the game really wasn't all that exciting, but that Celtics-Cavs game. And one thing I did come away from that just kind of thinking was like, damn, Donovan Mitchell is really good at basketball. That dude, it was him versus Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much a one-man show, even when the last game they won. I mean, he kind of goes for some, I don't know why, just maybe it's kind of just like his stature, because he's pretty much got an all-around game. There's not much he can't really do. It's weird that and before you say, well, he played in Utah. Of course, you're not going to get a lot of shine in Utah, but it's not a huge market. But Cleveland's had a little success, thanks to the LeBron years and just being they're on TV a lot. Just that's kind of a team that the NBA likes to showcase. So you would have thought he got a little bit more run this year, but yeah, he's been really impressive. If they get him some help, that could be a hell of a squad there. He's going to go anywhere from. He's kind of the franchise now.
Yeah. It was him against the Celtics the other night. And I mean, he hit a couple of runners. It was just like, man, this dude has got some touch. Like he's a hell of a fun guy to watch. Also, just a note too, in the NHL, there are some great series going on there too. I've been a little bit surprised that the Rangers have been as good as they have. The Canes finally got one against them yesterday, but Rangers still lead that series 3-1, so they're pretty much in control there. And then the Stars are up 2-1 on the Avs. I kind of thought that series would go either way. I thought the Oilers would maybe more so run away against the Canucks, but that's been a tight series so far. And then the one that really I don't know. That didn't shock me, but surprised me because the way it started, the Bruins got the first one, which I didn't think was going to happen because they had just went to a overtime game 7 and somehow turned around and won right away again against the Panthers. But then since then, it's been the Panthers. They've won 3 straight. They are up 3-1 in that series, so really an interesting turnaround. So there are some fun storylines going on that side too if you're interested in watching the puck. So. We'll see. There's going to be some fun. I think the semifinals are going to be really good in the NHL playoffs. So that's going to be some good stuff to watch for sure.
Yeah, once I think I'm gonna start looking at those totals. I had some fun with that last year, especially finals, and then of course into the finals, and maybe even some puck lines while I'm at it.
Yeah, for sure. Have some fun with it. That's kind of what we had on our docket here to talk about here for you this week. Obviously, if you have some topics that you want to throw out at us, more than happy to entertain those. So get in touch with us. And, of course, we'll be putting out the plays all week long, too. They're online. As we told you way, before this kind of season started, that, it's easier kind of to go day by day, really, because things change so much when it comes to so many games being played all the time. We can't really look too far out for you on the show. So check our Twitter, at Cherokee CP, at SJM Bets. SJ does a great job putting those graphics together for us and what we're playing each day. Of course, feel free to chirp back at us there as well. If there's something you see you like or don't like, or you want to go a different way, let us know. And if there's a beer you want us to try, a topic you want us to tackle, something that we're missing, and we try to find some of the fun, good stories, but there's always good stuff out there. I'm sure that we're not always getting our eyeballs on, so we appreciate your help with that as well. So please interact with us there. The podcast available anywhere you want to find it. So if you're looking at any of those different platforms that you like to use, just search Every Day We're Covering, and you're going to track it down, including the available YouTube channel, which then we will also put the little short videos that we do for you sometime, special for certain events as well. And we will probably do that one coming up here for the Preakness to have a little fun with that too. So SJ, it's been a good weekend. Hopefully we've got some good plays coming up here this week for folks to kind of roll on through and keep this ball rolling downhill.
Yeah, well, speaking of those beers, I'll just hope it doesn't come with a disbanded franchise. But let us know. I'm kind of. I mean, I told you I'm sticking with this old reliable, but I'm in search for some new styles here. Maybe of course I've talked about how I love the sours. That's good for the summer. But even that wit, man, I might have to go snag me up a couple of wits. But yeah, like you said, the plays will keep coming with basketball in full swing, and then the NHL as well. And pretty big fight coming up this weekend too, with Tyson Fury and Alexander there in Arabia. I understand there's some political things and stuff with them where the money's coming from, but dude, I love those Saudi cards because it's like 2 or 3 in the afternoon local time here, nice. And I don't you don't have to stay up to 1 a.m. watching the fight. So yeah. I'm all about that, and I guess that just means I'm getting old. But I don't know. Like, to me, I've always loved the combat sports, but it's weird to me how kind of what they expect of the consumer has always been a little odd. Paying all that extra money, and on top of that, watching it after midnight in some cases is always kind of like that's the side of it I don't like. It's just with, of course, when you're younger, you don't give a crap. But now that I'm a little, got a few more responsibilities, it's not as easy to stay up till 1 a.m. and be up at 6:30 the next day. So yeah. We'd rather not have those afternoon cards. So let's keep more of those coming. I guess that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. That totally makes sense. And of course, we bitch about that all the time with the major pro sports that they start at too late. It sucks when the damn Game 7 of the World Series ends at 11:30 midnight. That's bullshit. So yeah, I can understand where you're coming from on that. That's for sure.
Because no matter what, the kids are waking you up at 6:30, whether you're ready or not. Those eyelids will be peeled open by your doing or by somebody else's.
All right, that's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next week for some more covers.